There's a kind of tiredness that no one warns you about. It doesn't come from staying up too late or working too hard. It's the kind of fatigue that settles quietly, like dust in an old room, hardly noticeable at first, until one day it covers everything. Have you ever felt that? You slept well. You didn't do much, and yet you wake up with a heaviness in your bones, as if even your dreams were too tired to lift you. Some mornings feel like a fog you can't walk through. Some afternoons feel like your body is sinking into the chair, not out of rest, but out of resignation. And you think to yourself, why am I so tired when I've barely done anything at all? You're not alone. In fact, this quiet fatigue, this weariness that has no name, has become a silent companion for many in their later years. Some believe it's just part of growing old. That's life, they say. That's age catching up with you. And yet, what if it's not entirely true? What if this exhaustion isn't simply a symptom of aging, but a message from within, a whisper from the body, or perhaps even the soul? Over the years, I've listened to many elders share their truth. Some feel tired from the weight of invisible worries, some from medications they've never questioned. Others have unknowingly shaped their days around habits that drain rather than restore. And almost always, the tiredness comes with a hidden story. Maybe you've told yourself, I'm just getting older. Of course I'm tired. But deep down, something doesn't sit right. You wonder if there's more, a missing piece, a quiet imbalance that no one talks about. Today, let's explore that possibility. Not with blame, not with lectures about more sleep or more vitamins, but with honesty and gentleness. Together we'll walk through 10 quiet reasons why so many feel deeply tired after 60. Reasons that often hide in plain sight. Some are physical, others are emotional. All of them are deeply human, and through each one we'll find not just the cause, but a teaching, a reminder to return, to presence, to balance, to the soft wisdom that Buddhist philosophy has always offered in times like these. So before we begin, let us pause, take a breath, and listen, not just with the ears, but with the part of you that has longed to feel alive again. Because this journey is not about energy alone. It's about reclaiming the quiet vitality that lives within us all, waiting to rise again, one gentle awareness at a time. Part 1. Dehydration, the body's forgotten cry. There's something quietly poetic and quietly dangerous about how the body whispers for water as we age. When we were young, thirst shouted. Our mouths dried up, our throats itched, and our bodies practically demanded we quench the fire. But now the voice of thirst becomes faint, like the distant creak of wind through an old forest. Many elders, without even realizing it, live in a constant state of mild dehydration, not because they are careless, but because the body no longer calls out as loudly as it once did. I once spoke with an elderly gentleman named Frank, a thoughtful, gentle soul in his late 70s. I drink plenty of water, he insisted, holding up the single glass he had with his morning medication. It was nearly 4 in the afternoon. When I asked if he had drunk anything since then, he shrugged and said, well, I had some soup with lunch, and there it was. That common misconception, that quiet dismissal. Frank wasn't being neglectful. He simply didn't feel thirsty, so he didn't drink. But what he did feel was tired, bone-deep tiredness that clung to him like a shadow, especially in the afternoons. Dehydration in older adults doesn't always show up as thirst. Instead, it manifests in foggy thinking, low mood, heavy eyelids, and a slow, dragging fatigue that feels impossible to shake. The blood thickens just enough to make the heart work harder. The brain starts misfiring, not from disease, but from lack of liquid clarity. And so, without knowing why, Many elders find themselves falling asleep in chairs mid-sentence, feeling confused, irritable, or just off. In one Buddhist story, a monk traveled through a dry, dusty region. When his companion asked how he could remain so calm despite the heat and thirst, the monk replied, "I listen to the body before it raises its voice. A whisper is easier to answer than a scream." In many ways, our modern lives, even quiet, retired lives, have forgotten that wisdom. We wait until the body cries out, when instead we might tend to it gently, consistently, like watering a beloved houseplant before its leaves droop. And let's be honest, there's a reason many older adults avoid drinking too much. No one wants to be dashing to the bathroom every hour. The fear of incontinence or the hassle of mobility issues makes some people restrict their intake. But here's the truth: you don't need to flood your body, you need to nourish it. Gentle, steady sips. A glass on the table as a visual cue. Infused water with lemon, mint, or a splash of juice to make it feel like something special. Your personal spa tonic, as one woman calls it. Even sipping herbal tea, slowly and with presence, can be a small act of mindfulness that reconnects you to your own care. The Buddha often taught that suffering arises not just from pain, but from neglect, from ignoring the truth that is already here. And what is thirst, if not a quiet truth we've learned to tune out? So today, perhaps you might consider, when was the last time you drank water before you were thirsty? When was the last time you honored your body's needs, not with urgency, but with gentleness? Sometimes the most compassionate act is not grand. It's a simple sip of water, taken with full awareness. A moment of presence poured into a glass. Part 2. Stillness is not always rest. There's a common image many of us hold about retirement: a cozy armchair, a warm blanket, perhaps a soft ray of afternoon sunlight falling across the living room. It's a picture of peace, of having earned the right to rest after decades of doing. And yet, hidden within that comfort is a strange paradox. The more we sit, the more exhausted we seem to feel. How can that be? A retired school teacher once shared something that has lingered with me for years. "I spend most of my day doing nothing," she said, "and yet by 5 o'clock I feel like I've been hauling bricks." There was sadness in her voice, but more than that, confusion. She had imagined rest would rejuvenate her. Instead, it drained her. And that confusion is something many older adults carry quietly, like a question they don't quite know how to ask. The truth is, stillness, when passive, prolonged, and unconscious, is not the same as rest. Rest renews the spirit, but stillness, left untended, begins to stagnate. Our muscles stiffen, our circulation slows, even our breath becomes shallow, as if the body is slowly dimming its light. It's not laziness, it's not weakness. It's the body's natural adaptation to inactivity, a kind of internal power-saving mode, where energy is dialed down simply because it's not being called upon. In Buddhist teachings, we often hear about right effort, not just any action, but intentional, nourishing effort. In the same way, movement in later life doesn't mean running marathons or lifting weights at the gym. It means reminding the body, gently and regularly, that it is still alive, it is still needed, it still belongs to the flow of this moment. There's a delightful story shared by an 82-year-old man online who created what he called TV commercial exercises. Every time a commercial came on, he would stand up, stretch his arms, march in place, or sway a little, like he was dancing with an invisible partner. "I don't know what I look like," he wrote, "but I feel better than I have in years." His movement wasn't grand, but it was consistent, and more importantly, it was joyful. The Buddha compared the body to a boat, when left anchored too long in one place. The bottom gathers algae and barnacles, but when gently steered across the water, even slowly, it stays clean, balanced, ready. Our bodies too crave this gentle navigation. A short walk to the mailbox, standing while talking on the phone, a slow stretch while brushing your teeth. These are not workouts. They are quiet rituals of reawakening. So if you've ever found yourself slumped in your chair, wondering why you feel so tired after doing so little, consider this. Perhaps it's not the absence of movement that's draining you, but the absence of conscious, caring movement. Not as a task, but as a gift to your body. And maybe, just maybe, your energy isn't gone. It's simply waiting for you to rise. Part 3. Silent stress. The invisible weight we carry. Sometimes the heaviest burdens are the ones no one can see, not even ourselves. They don't come with loud alarms or dramatic breakdowns. Instead, they sit quietly in the background of our days, like a soft hum that never stops, until it becomes the soundtrack of our lives. This is the nature of silent stress, the kind that doesn't come from doing too much, but from feeling too much without knowing what to do with it. I remember a conversation with a gentle widow named Helen, who had retired 5 years prior. "My life is simple now," she said, almost apologetically. "No job, no small kids to care for, no deadlines. So why do I wake up feeling like I haven't rested at all?" She paused, and her voice softened. "I think I'm always worried, not about anything specific, just everything." Her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness, but from recognition, as if she was finally hearing the quiet truth she had been carrying alone for too long. In Buddhism, we often speak of dukkha, suffering, but not always the dramatic kind. It's the ache of uncertainty, the low hum of anxiety, the tension in the chest when life feels like it's slipping out of control. This silent stress, though invisible, consumes vast amounts of our inner energy. It clouds the mind, tightens the muscles, disrupts the breath. Over time, it becomes the background fog we mistake for aging, when in reality, it's the cost of holding everything inside. One woman in a senior support group shared a simple but profound practice. Every evening before bed, she writes down her worries, big or small, on scraps of paper. Then she folds each one, places them in a small shoebox, and whispers, "That's tomorrow's burden. Tonight, I rest." She calls it her worry vault, and over time, she said, something shifted. The act of releasing, even symbolically, gave her permission to breathe again. From the Buddhist perspective, naming our suffering is the first step to transforming it. Just like mindfulness brings awareness to the breath, it also shines light on our emotional patterns, the ones we've pushed down, brushed off, or convinced ourselves aren't worth troubling others with. But stress that is denied does not disappear. It disguises itself as fatigue, irritability, even physical pain. So perhaps the next time you feel drained for no apparent reason, you might pause and ask, what am I holding on to right now? It may be a worry about health, or the fear of becoming a burden, or even grief that still lingers in the quiet spaces of your day. Let that awareness be the beginning of your healing, not by solving everything at once, but by making space for it. Journaling, talking to a trusted friend, praying, meditating, these are not just practices, they are acts of reverence for the truth inside you. The Buddha reminded us that freedom begins with seeing clearly, and in that spirit, we remember the things that weigh us down do not always need to be fought. Sometimes they just need to be acknowledged. That too is a form of release. Part 4. The false comfort of easy foods. There's something so deeply comforting about familiar food. A soft piece of toast, a bowl of cereal, a muffin warmed just enough to bring back memories of early mornings long gone. These are the foods many older adults reach for, not just for convenience, but because they feel safe, gentle, easy to chew, easy to digest, and sometimes just easy to face. After all, when the appetite fades and energy feels low, who wants to cook a full meal or experiment with quinoa? But here's the quiet truth. Some of these so-called comfort foods are gently stealing our vitality, not out of malice, but out of misunderstanding. I once met a retired mailman named George. Every morning, like clockwork, he would have 2 slices of white toast with jam, a banana, and a cup of coffee. It's quick, it's light, it doesn't upset my stomach, he told me. But an hour later, like clockwork again, George would find himself nodding off in his recliner, remote in hand, TV murmuring in the background. He thought it was just age, until a kind-hearted dietitian pointed out that his breakfast was essentially a sugar bomb. White bread, jam, banana, all fast-burning carbohydrates that rush into the bloodstream, giving a brief burst of energy, followed by a crash that leaves the body and mind sluggish. The engine starts with a roar and then sputters out before noon. And so the cycle continues. Eat, crash, nap, repeat, all the while wondering, why am I always so tired? In Buddhism, we speak of right nourishment, not just food for the body, but for the spirit. And part of that teaching means asking, does what I consume truly support me, or does it merely pacify me? The difference is subtle, but the consequences are not. We live in a culture that once demonized fat, glorified low-calorie snacks, and promised that light equals healthy. And yet we now know that healthy fats, from avocado, nuts, olive oil, are essential for stabilizing blood sugar, brain function, and long-term energy. That protein isn't just for bodybuilders, but for healing tissues and keeping us standing tall. That fiber isn't just about digestion, but about balance. And that sugar, though sweet, often leaves behind a residue of exhaustion. A woman once shared in a community circle that her afternoon fatigue disappeared the day she swapped her usual cookie and tea for a boiled egg and a handful of almonds. It felt like such a small change, she said, but somehow I felt 10 years younger, like my body finally sighed in relief. From a Buddhist lens, food is also mindfulness. When we slow down and ask, what does this meal offer me, and what does it take away, we begin to transform not only our diet, but our relationship with our body. Meals become less about habit or emotional escape, and more about sacred caretaking. So the next time you reach for that easy snack or bowl of cereal, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this comforting or just familiar? Is this nourishing or just numbing? And if the answer surprises you, let that be your first step toward eating and living with greater awareness. Sometimes, the smallest shifts in our plate can awaken the deepest shifts in our energy. And that too is a form of healing. Part 5. Shallow sleep. The illusion of rest. There's a particular kind of heartbreak that comes not from loss, but from waking up more tired than when you went to bed. You closed your eyes. You stayed in bed for 7, 8, maybe even 9 hours. And yet when morning arrives, it feels as though your soul never truly slept. Your limbs are heavy, your mind is foggy, and there's a dull ache somewhere in the center of your being that no stretch or sip of coffee seems to fix. This is the illusion of rest. We confuse time in bed with quality of sleep, and for many elders, that distinction is quietly draining them, night after night. I once met a woman named Clara, a retired librarian in her early 70s. She said, I sleep through the night, but I still wake up exhausted. Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing sleep wrong. At first glance, everything seemed normal. No insomnia, no nightmares. But when she shared more, patterns emerged, waking up 5 or 6 times to use the bathroom, replaying worries in her mind before drifting off again, sleeping with the TV on for background noise. Her nights were not truly restful. They were fragmented, shallow, scattered like pebbles on a pond. The Buddha once compared the mind to a bowl of still water. In true sleep, that water settles, becoming clear and calm. But when stirred, even gently, by distraction, worry, or discomfort, the water becomes murky. And in that murkiness, our healing is incomplete. Modern sleep science now echoes this ancient wisdom. Deep sleep, the kind where the body repairs cells, the brain detoxes, and the heart rhythm slows, only happens when we sink into stillness. But so many things pull us back to the surface: pain in the joints, low blood sugar, anxiety, even the blue light from a glowing television screen. We might think we're resting, but our brains are still keeping watch, alert, vigilant, never quite letting go. One man in a Buddhist elders group shared a surprisingly simple change. He replaced his nightly TV routine with a white noise machine and began taking a magnesium supplement before bed. At first it felt too quiet, he admitted. But then, one night, I dreamed. I actually dreamed. I hadn't done that in years. It wasn't just the dream, it was the message it carried. His body had finally reached the sanctuary of deep sleep. Sometimes, healing doesn't come from effort, but from surrender, creating a sacred sleep space. Dark, cool, quiet is not a luxury, but a necessity. So is letting go of mental chatter before bedtime. For some, that means gentle stretches or a short, loving-kindness meditation. For others, it's writing down the day's worries in a notebook, whispering to themselves, "I've done enough for today." In Buddhism, we often speak of right intention, and sleep too requires intention, not in forceful ways, but in tender ones. The intention to rest deeply, to allow the body and mind to descend into a state of true stillness. Not just sleep, but restoration. So tonight, before you lay your head on the pillow, ask, what would help me fall, not just to sleep, but into peace? And may your answer be the doorway to sleep that actually renews you, like the quiet reset your soul has been waiting for. Part 6. The healing power of nature. There's a kind of medicine that doesn't come in a bottle. It doesn't have side effects. It doesn't require a prescription. And yet, its absence is deeply felt. It's called sunlight, breeze, birdsong, earth beneath your feet. And it is astonishing how many of us, especially as we age, begin to drift quietly away from it, not by intention, but by slow habit. We stay indoors longer, drawn into the comfort of cushions and climate control, unaware that something vital is being left behind: our connection to the living world. I once spoke with a man named Walt, a retired mechanic with a quiet spirit and worn hands. After his wife passed, he found himself spending more and more time in his recliner. There didn't seem to be a reason to go outside, he said. Everything I needed was in here: the TV, the food, the heater. But over time, his energy began to drain. He felt tired in ways he couldn't explain, not just physically but spiritually, as though some invisible cord had been unplugged. Then one morning he started sitting on the porch again, just 10 minutes with his coffee, nothing more, no phone, no books, no distractions, just the sky. A week passed, then 2, and one day he realized he had started looking forward to waking up again. "The morning air feels like it speaks to me," he whispered, eyes wet with quiet joy, "like it reminds me I'm still here." From a Buddhist view, this is not surprising. Nature is not outside of us. It is us. The elements we observe, air, earth, water, fire, live within our very body. When we separate from the natural world, we separate from ourselves, and when we return, even briefly, we remember our rhythm. Our breath aligns with the wind, our stillness mirrors the trees, our hearts soften because we are no longer trapped in walls, either physical or mental. Science agrees, just 15 minutes of natural sunlight can reset your circadian rhythm, the inner clock that governs sleep, appetite, and mood. Fresh air increases oxygen flow to the brain. Exposure to green spaces reduces cortisol, the stress hormone that quietly exhausts us. And let's not forget vitamin D, that silent powerhouse of immunity and vitality that so many elders unknowingly lack. But beyond the biological, there is something sacred in the simplicity of nature. Watching squirrels chase each other in the branches, listening to the rustle of leaves, feeling the sun warm your skin, these are not distractions. They are invitations to be here, to feel life move, to remember that aging doesn't mean withdrawing from the world. It means learning how to merge with it, more softly, more soulfully. The Buddha found awakening, not in a temple, but beneath a tree. And perhaps that tells us something important, that enlightenment, or at the very least renewal, is often found not in doing more, but in being with what is natural, quiet, and true. So if you've been feeling worn down, depleted, or strangely disconnected, try this step outside, even for a few minutes. Let your body meet the breeze. Let your eyes rest on something green, something living. You don't need to walk far or do anything grand. Simply be with the world as it is. No filters, no effort. And perhaps in that small act of reconnection, you will begin to feel not just less tired, but more alive. Part 7. Hidden nutrient deficiencies. Not all hunger is loud. Sometimes the body doesn't roar, it whispers. And in older age, those whispers often go unheard. You might eat regularly, even healthily. You might think, I've always eaten this way, so why would anything change now? And yet, something feels off. You feel foggy, like your mind is walking through molasses. Your legs ache without cause. You tire quickly, even after a full night's sleep. And slowly, gently, you begin to believe this is just what aging feels like. But what if it's not age? What if it's deficiency, quiet, unseen, and utterly reversible? I recall the story of Eleanor, a woman in her late 60s, who described her daily life as walking through mud. Her body was heavy, her mind dulled, her spark gone. She had resigned herself to the thought that she was simply slowing down with time. But during a routine doctor's visit, her daughter urged her to request blood work. The results were startling. Eleanor was significantly low in vitamin B12, vitamin D, and iron. No one had caught it before, but within weeks of supplementing, she felt a difference, not just in her muscles, but in her mood. I feel like someone turned the lights back on inside me, she said. As we age, the body doesn't absorb nutrients the way it once did. What nourished us at 40 may not sustain us at 70. And the signs of deficiency aren't always dramatic. They're subtle. Constant fatigue, pale skin, dizziness, memory slips, low mood. It's so easy to chalk these up to growing old. But the body is wise, and it speaks in signals. We just have to remember how to listen. From a Buddhist perspective, this speaks to the principle of right awareness, the practice of seeing clearly what is, without assumption. Sometimes what we interpret as spiritual dullness or emotional decline is actually physical imbalance, and caring for the body, truly nourishing it, is not separate from the path. It is the path. Consider the nutrients most often missing. Vitamin B12, essential for nerve function and energy. Iron, which carries oxygen to every cell. vitamin D, which supports immunity, bone strength, and mood, magnesium, which calms the muscles and the nervous system. Lacking just one can pull the whole body out of rhythm. Lacking several, it's no wonder you feel like a wind-up clock that's lost its spring. But here's the hopeful part. This is changeable. A simple blood test, a conversation with your doctor, a small shift in diet. These can become acts of deep compassion toward your own body. You don't need to drown in supplements or chase fads. You simply need to ask, what might I be missing? The Buddha taught that wisdom begins with seeing things as they truly are, not how we assume them to be. And sometimes what we see as this, the tiredness we've accepted as normal, is actually the body's way of saying, I need more light. I need more support. Please notice me. So today, perhaps you might pause and consider, is my fatigue telling a story I haven't listened to yet? And if it is, may your next step, even just asking a gentle question, become a doorway to feeling whole again. Part 8. Losing the spark, emotional numbness. There's a kind of tiredness that doesn't live in the muscles or behind the eyes. It lives somewhere deeper, quieter, in the space between the heartbeats. It's not exhaustion from effort, but from emptiness. You're not overwhelmed. You're under-inspired. Not sad exactly, but flat, like a song that's lost its melody. I once heard a man in his 70s say, I don't feel depressed. I just don't feel much of anything. His voice wasn't heavy with pain, but with silence. The silence of a life that has gradually lost its spark, that bright, flickering sense of purpose that once pulled him out of bed each morning with curiosity, with care, with motion. His children had grown, his work had long since ended, and the days had begun to melt into one another like an old photograph left in the sun. Soft, faded, almost without edges. In Buddhist practice, we often speak of vitality, not just physical strength, but the energy of intention, of being awake to life. Without that inner spark, we fall into what the scriptures call moha, a kind of spiritual dullness or fog. And in that fog, everything becomes harder: movement, decision, even joy. The strange thing is, this numbness rarely comes all at once. It arrives in whispers. You stop going to your gardening club because it feels like too much effort. You don't call your neighbor anymore because what would you even say? You eat dinner in silence, not because you're lonely, but because the silence feels easier than engaging with a world that no longer excites you. Over time, the world doesn't look different. You do. You're still functioning, but you're not fully living. But here's the truth, that spark is not gone. It's simply buried under grief, routine, and the weight of unanswered questions. And like a coal beneath the ashes, it only needs a little breath, a little attention, to glow again. I met a woman named Doris, a former pianist who hadn't touched a key in over 20 years. One day, her granddaughter asked if she could play something, just one song. At first, Doris hesitated, saying her hands were stiff, her memory unreliable. But slowly, she sat at the piano. Her fingers moved awkwardly, searching. Then, something emerged. Not perfect music, but a moment of connection. And in that moment, Doris said, I remembered what it felt like to be me. This is what the Buddha meant when he said, the lamp within is never truly extinguished. Even when we feel disconnected, even when our joy feels out of reach, it is still there, waiting patiently, like a beloved friend standing at the door, hoping to be let back in. So how do we find it again? Not by force, not by searching frantically for meaning, but by returning to small things that once lit us up. A walk at sunrise, a recipe you haven't cooked in years, a book you once loved, a pet you can care for, or a letter you write by hand to an old friend. These are not distractions. They are invitations back into yourself. If your days have begun to feel grey and you find yourself saying, "What's the point?" Know this. The point is you, your presence, your being, your still burning ability to care, to notice, to feel deeply, even now. And maybe, just maybe, that quiet tiredness you've been carrying isn't from doing too much. It's from needing to feel alive again. Part 9. Medication overload. Too many tools, too little balance. There's a quiet ritual that unfolds in many homes every morning. The rattle of pill bottles, the careful sorting of tablets into compartments labeled by day, the routine of swallowing medication with the first sip of water. It's so common, so automatic, that we rarely pause to consider, what are all these pills doing together inside my body? For many elders, medications become like souvenirs from each doctor's visit. One for blood pressure, another for sleep, one to ease the stomach, one to calm the nerves. Over time, the cabinet becomes crowded, and so does the body, overwhelmed not by illness, but by intervention. I once sat with a man named Harold, who described his experience with gentle frustration. "I take so many pills," he said. "I don't know which one is helping and which one is hurting, but I do know this. I'm tired all the time." At first he assumed the fatigue was just another symptom of aging, but after a full medication review with a pharmacist, not a doctor, but someone who truly understands interactions, they discovered that 2 of his prescriptions were subtly working against each other. One was sedating him, the other was stimulating him. His body was caught in a tug of war, and the result was pure exhaustion. From a Buddhist perspective, this situation reflects the teaching of right balance, the middle path. Too little, and we suffer. Too much, and we also suffer. Even well-meaning support can become a burden when it is layered without awareness. Medicine, like anything powerful, requires discernment, a kind of inner mindfulness that asks not just, "Is this necessary?" but also, "Is this still serving me now?" The truth is, our bodies change with time, but our prescriptions don't always catch up. What was helpful 5 years ago may now be too much. What once worked in harmony may now be creating subtle chaos. And because the side effects creep in quietly, fatigue, dizziness, brain fog, we tend to blame ourselves. Maybe I'm just getting old. But what if it's not aging? What if it's imbalance? One woman named Teresa shared how, after years of fatigue, she requested a medication review. Her pharmacist discovered that one of her heart medications was blocking the absorption of vitamin B12. And just like that, a mystery was solved. With a few adjustments, her mind cleared. Her steps felt lighter. "I didn't even realize how foggy I was," she said, "until I wasn't anymore." In Buddhist practice, we're taught to look deeply, to examine even what we take for granted. Medications, though prescribed by trusted hands, are not beyond question. They are tools, not truths. And sometimes, the wisest thing we can do is revisit the tools we carry. So if you find yourself moving through your days in a haze, if you've lost the sense of vitality that once felt natural, ask this simple question: could my medicine be stealing more than it gives? And if the answer is uncertain, then perhaps it's time, gently, respectfully, to open that conversation with your care provider, or better yet, with a pharmacist who can see the whole picture. Because healing isn't just about adding more. Sometimes it's about letting go of what no longer belongs. And in that letting go, the body and spirit may finally have room to breathe again. Part 10. You might just need more joy. Sometimes what we call fatigue is not about sleep or diet or even illness. Sometimes it's the soul quietly whispering, I miss something. Not something practical, not something measurable, but something that makes life feel alive. And that something is joy. There was an older woman named Ruth I once sat beside in a community circle. When I asked how she was feeling these days, she paused for a long time before answering. "I don't know," she said. "Not bad, not good, just flat." Her words hung in the air like a soft sigh. She wasn't complaining. She wasn't depressed. She was simply disconnected from joy. And she didn't even know it had slipped away. We tend to think of joy as an extra, a bonus feeling that comes after everything else is in order. We tell ourselves, once I fix my health, once the house is clean, once I get more rest, then I'll have time for joy. But joy is not dessert. It's not something you earn after enduring. It's fuel. Without it, even the smallest tasks feel heavy. With it, even a hard day can feel meaningful. In Buddhism, we speak of mudita, sympathetic joy, the ability to rejoice in the beauty and happiness of life itself. Whether it arises in us or around us, it is not a frivolous emotion. It is a sacred one. Joy nourishes the heart. It reawakens our capacity for gratitude, connection, and vitality. It reminds us, even after loss, even through pain, that there is still something worth smiling for. I'll never forget a man named Bill, a widower in his early 80s, who started writing poetry again after decades. "It's not good," he chuckled, "but it makes me laugh. Sometimes it makes me cry. Either way, it makes me feel something again." Or Clara, who began learning silly TikTok dances with her granddaughter, their laughter echoing through the house like sunlight through old windows. She said, "I haven't moved this much in years, and I haven't smiled this much either." Joy doesn't need to be grand. It doesn't need to be logical. Sometimes it's found in planting a flower and checking on it like it's your grandchild. Sometimes it's watching birds at the feeder, or painting a rock, or eating dessert before dinner, just because it makes your inner child grin. The Buddha often reminded his followers that awakening is not a grim pursuit. It is a liberation of the heart. Joy, he taught, is part of the path, not just after enlightenment, but on the way to it. So if you've been feeling tired in a way you can't explain, tired not just in body, but in spirit, maybe, just maybe, it's time to invite joy back in. Not by waiting for it to find you, but by creating little doorways it can walk through. Wear a color you love. Sing along with a song, even if your voice cracks. Say yes to something small and silly and entirely unnecessary. Because what if your tiredness isn't about what's wrong, but about what's missing? And what if that missing piece isn't a solution, but a spark? May you have the courage to chase joy, even if it tiptoes in quietly, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. Because in that soft, glowing ember of laughter, surprise and delight, you just might find not only energy, but yourself again. Conclusion. The quiet return to vitality. Perhaps today, your tiredness is not a sign of failure, but a quiet teacher, asking you to listen more deeply. Maybe it's whispering, "I need water, not just sleep. I need movement, not just rest. I need to release the worries I never speak of. I need food that loves me back. I need real, healing sleep. I need sunlight and sky. I need nutrients I didn't know were missing. I need meaning. I need balance in my medicine and in my days. And yes, I need joy, not someday, but now." You see, this journey through tiredness isn't about fixing yourself. It's about returning to yourself, gently, kindly, in small sacred ways. You don't need to change everything overnight. You don't need to force your body into energy. Just tend to one thing: a sip of cool water, a deep breath beneath the morning sun, a single smile that feels like you again. In Buddhism, we learn that the path to wholeness is not a sprint, it is a walking meditation. Each step is its own destination. Each small awakening, a soft lantern lighting the path home. So before you go, pause and ask yourself, which part of me has been waiting the longest to be nourished? And what is one gentle thing I can do, just today, to honor that? Because tiredness is not your enemy. It is your invitation to slow down, to simplify, to awaken. May your energy return not through force, but through kindness. May each step be a quiet return to yourself, and may the life within you rise again, like the sun, soft but certain, after a long night. If this reflection touched something in you, if it brought clarity or comfort, please consider subscribing to Quiet Wisdom. It helps us continue sharing gentle truths like this, and you never know who else might need this message today. Leave a comment if you wish, and remember, even your smallest step toward well-being is a sacred one. Until next time, walk gently and be well.